good afternoon. I have a long presentation, but I will make it short because I see the room emptying progressively, and I guess some of you must like to go and visit outside. So thank you, Didier, for giving me the opportunity to share with you today a few thoughts about this provocative title. Because even me, I don't think it's as easy as it looks. But what I wanted to say, since it was in the planning section of our afternoon, is try to discuss the issue of smartness in the urban environment in the context of one current main aspect of urbanization worldwide, that is metropolitan aspect or metropolisation. And it appears that since Paris over the last decade has returned into Paris and the suburban area in a regional context into a much more integrated metropolitan area, it was a good opportunity to discuss both the issue of smart urbanization in changing planning contexts and the situation in Paris. By the way, this is the La Défense Business District in the west of Paris, but looking to Paris, you can see the Eiffel Tower somewhere in the smog here. Oops. Trying to look. Well, it's up. You can see it. So it's backwards, and you can really get a feeling that we are no longer somewhere in the boundary of Paris and the outskirts, but in an expanding urban regional system that is now really turning metropolitan. I will get back to that later, this manifesto, and it echoes, I don't know if the gentleman is in the room, which introduced the first 10 points of analytical framework of smart cities. We have also worked on that over the last 18 months, and some of our conclusions prove remarkably converging. So I will get back to this later, but this is part of the expertise that we do with my office, which we also happened to set up 10 years ago, just after the World Open Forum in Vancouver. Another aspect of my activity is that is leading a think tank. It's a not-for-profit organization. It's entirely dedicated to metropolitan development and the analysis of metropolitan environments, based upon the case study of Paris, which is for us a living lab, but also tied to a number of foundation think tanks and labs worldwide. So it's really part not of a business effort, but I would say a civil society effort inspired by businesses, academics, researchers, practitioners, and partners organizations worldwide. By the way, this is how we met with Didier back in Quito when they were in the Hackfactory World Summit. So it happens to be also a catalyst for interesting meetings and discussions. About that, take it or leave it, but I've tried preparing for our session to connect different kind of issues. Right now, we are about 55% of people living in cities, which was not the case not that long time ago, about 30 years ago, about 45%. We have turned to urban by 2006 and 2008. We are now turning to metropolitan. What will come next? I don't know, maybe hyper-connected. It was a report by ISOCARP a couple of years ago. But anyway, we can have a feeling that things are being mixed or messed up as you wish. And in that context, we have a number of global efforts and undertakings, ranging from the Kyoto Protocol to COP21, from the Millennium Development Goals to the Sustainable Development Goals, and from Habitat 2 in Istanbul to Habitat 3 last year in Quito. And in the meanwhile, you can see the first CeBIT in 1986 didn't look as sexy as it might sound today, but it was typically German back in the mid-80s. It's also by then, by the mid-90s, that the first smart cities literature has really come on the place. We did a lot of research trying to understand when was this digital city, smart city terms coined, and it appears that it's by the mid-90s, 1994, 7, 8. By then, smart cities literature, which has then exploded. And 2009 is interesting advertisement for CeBIT with two issues: billions, well, it was billions of euros. We are talking of billions of people, and the illustrations behind, which showed this vision of smart or tech company, you can see them outside just in the halls, of a world that is not seen by tech companies as it's being seen by urbanists and planners. Definitely not. Only that it is the same word we are sharing. And it raises clearly questions. I would say that up until, well, this Greater Paris consultation by 2008-9, still it was planning and urban development leading the way towards organizing the world. By now, it would be not the planners taking the lead, it would be other aspects, other influences, other trends, such as internet aspects, social networks, connected objects, etc. All issues which you can find outside in the halls, which do profoundly influence the way we imagine, we see, we envision, we govern, we finance urban development or our life in cities, which is no longer made by planners. So we are in a kind of series of interconnected changes where smart clearly plays a role, but it might not be in the hands of planners, right? So my thesis or my recommendation, if not an assumption, would be how do we as planners, but maybe more than planners, do we connect with the management of space? Certainly not by just going back to a sort of cityness or Dorflichkeit, but by coping with the large scale, the metropolitan scale, and find ways in that multi-million, very large inter-administrative, inter-jurisdiction scale, find a way to recapture the essence of space building at a large scale in times where digital issues are clearly a dominant feature on the table. An extract from this, CeBIT editions from artificial intelligence to virtual reality, and if cities were about space to people, maybe metropolitan aspects of areas would be about space and connections. Where are the people? They are there for sure, but sometimes or citizenship tends to be overshadowed by connections, connectivity between whatsoever objects or artificial intelligence neurons. We must understand what is at stake behind that, and if it is still possible to plan something. Paris has faced that in its own way, and since the late 90s, beginning of the millennium, there has been many different attempts to sort of overcome the peripheric ring around Paris, delete it, erase it, and reconnect the Paris inner neighborhoods with the neighborhoods outside of Paris through single frame corridors. Like it's not Paris and outside of Paris, it's one kind of urbanization pattern with different specifications all around Paris. But the key aspect and the key issue, including the governance strategy of the former city mayor of Paris, Bertrand Delanoë, after he was elected in 2001, was to overcome this divide. Some books like this one, No Limit, or The City of the Periphery, the City of the Periphery from 2003, the other one from 2008 or 9, clearly show this will to bridge this very long historical divide between Paris and the outskirts and the suburbia, and to make a city out of that, right? So first brick in the metropolitan system. Then Paris beyond Paris. Then it was Paris more than Paris. You may have heard about this Reinventing Paris international competition, not Greater Paris, I'm talking about Paris. Launched in the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, and with the results last year, with up 23 sites to be regenerated through real estate investment, multi-purpose facilities on existing plots in Paris. So it's beyond Paris first, then more than Paris, that is augmented, doing something within the territory of Paris. And sort of now, beyond anymore, altogether, with this mapping of a so-called Arc de l'Innovation, or Innovation Corridor, which is more of some branding and communication than actual planning, but which shows, as you can see on the map, the number of locations where you could say these buildings are dedicated to the sharing or the startup or the next economy. Huh? And you can see, sorry, the clicker doesn't work. There's no battery, but you can see that where there is the more important densities of locations, it's within the boundaries of Paris. Then out of the boundaries of Paris, into the outer circle, there is a lower density, and the aim of this strategy innovation corridor is to maximize the potential of all installations together. This photo was shot last week at a 2024 Olympics Bid Hackathon. And these kind of illustrations of youngsters and young companies sitting around the table in the glided city halls or of Paris, or you've got other in the halls of the Palais de l'Élysée, etc., with other kind of hackathons about e-governance, tend to be more and more popular, as if we are looking in Paris to some new formula to reconnect placemaking and the new economy. I always find this a little bit disturbing because, and this was said also in the beginning, I very much believe that not everything should be supported or funded or guided by the city hall, but there is so much energy that is already there and that we don't build with it. So we don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to connect this about 10, 15 years ago, spatial, getting beyond this, so enrich architecture, enrich urban planning, and this with this no longer linked with that, but linked with the influence of the new economy and of new ways made to make the economy happen. Only that, it doesn't always happen at the city scale, hence my title, should smart city happen at the metropolitan scale? Journée sans voiture is the annual official day of city without a car, which is now taking place in a large segment of the inner core of Paris. Journée sans RER is not an official day. It's for those who can understand it, it's a day without metropolitan transit. We happen to face or to suffer from a series of systemic shocks in the metropolitan transportation network by the end of December or the beginning of December last year. Which happened to take place, of course, in days of very heavy pollution. So everything that is not going right in large cities was happening right at the same time, right? And just a couple of weeks after this willful, we go outside with the kids and the bikes, and there are no cars, and the city is green and exists. But this happened also for real, just a couple of kilometers away, when people had to leave the trains, they were stranded, even with suitcases, and to walk for sometimes over a kilometer to reach the next stations. This is happening exactly at the same time as this and this. So how do we manage to keep a balance between that all, and not to forget that it is not just about the most exciting premium sections of the city, not just about some islands of the next economy, but how do we make the different pieces of the puzzle stick together in a smart way at this scale, right? At this scale, which is monumental in its way, right? You can guess where the monument, the Eiffel Tower, etc. But this metropolitan scale is monumental, and it was the background and the essence of this Great Paris International Competition that was launched this year, 10 years ago, after the new president back then, Nicolas Sarkozy, decided that first, we could not get along with the regional governance as it was, and second, that we needed to have a broad, multi-year, multi-decade vision to assess the role of Paris, which was becoming smaller and smaller on the global map in a context of a globalizing capitalism. With visions such as this one, by referring to the history of Haussmannian Paris and Paris des Lumières, etc., of the World Expo by the turning of the 19th century, being sort of not replaced, but followed by illustrations of a sustainable and smart urban environment, as with these illustrations, which have since then become well-known and iconic by Rogers in 2008. So the essence was a little bit of placemaking, a little bit of planning, and a little bit of also of culture, nurturing the whole process. Not just technology, but acknowledging the role of technology, but incorporating incorporating it, in a broader vision and at a broader scale. In fact, at this scale, you've got Paris right in the middle, and a vision of a backbone of a new transportation network, about 200 kilometers, connecting a number of clusters or economic hubs. This was the vision coined by 2008 and 9. It has been heavily discussed, was proved quite controversial, but somehow still is up to date, so as sort of a connected metropolitan framework made of an infrastructure and connected clusters. Of course, that can be discussed, but this is the vision that was issued after 2010 and 11 regarding repositioning this, not the city, but the metropolis as a world-class hub of talents, research and development, and investments. With such illustrations as I showed with the cover page being the hubs of that new metropolitan framework, or these research centers, which is happening right now, in fact, in the southwest. I can't show it, but it would be point number 5 here on the map for the photos on the right side, and point number 2 on the left side, with a multi-million, very heavy equipment allowing to research on future urban conditions and recreate different kind of urban and climate environments, all under one roof. Or on the right side, the new additions to research centers, mostly public, in fact, in the so-called research area of Plateau de Saclay. So somehow a part of the initial plan is happening, and it is working. But then we need to get back to the governance, and it is not at that scale, it's at a smaller scale. And about planning in that context, and smart planning in that context, well, you can see from this map that was issued in the end of 2016, that it is, I would say, severely simple in terms of planning, right? It's not that sophisticated. You can guess that there is the transportation network and the Paris metro system, and then you must figure that the red stars are as many projects, right? On this map, about 60 of them, but some of them are very small, like it's about redeveloping a plot of land of 2,000 square meters. Some of them are rather big and will involve hundreds of new dwellings, dozens of thousands of new square meters of office development, etc. But I think it's interesting as it gives a sense of a changing environment, although the Metropolitan Authority that was created last year only account for part of the complete Paris urban agglomeration. And then it is in that context where somehow public efforts are being revived into incorporating things into a vision and a system and a framework and investments that data revolution, users revolution, and the entrepreneurial revolution is taking place, with everything being mixed up again. Architecture, real estate development, social issues, place making, etc. And this kind of image displayed in a report by Estin just a couple of weeks ago accounts rather well that smartness is definitely not equal to very rational and accountable organization, but more also a synonymous to profound transformation, and we don't really know where we are heading to. I would like to finish by this couple of proposals issued from this manifest. I've brought a couple of copies if you want to take it with you home, otherwise it's online. And referring to these 10 smart city issues that were showcased in the beginning of this meeting, I think we are rather close. My smart city would be referring to smart city and citizenship. Scaling up the vision for scaling up the action is definitely that. We are always talking about smart cities. It can be on small scale, large scale, but it has to also take place at metropolitan scale, not just demonstrators or living labs at very local levels. Not all issues are connected with planning and placemaking, but clearly we have lessons to learn from what is happening in sort of the global south, and that was mentioned also before, We have lessons to learn about the interoperability of databases. We have a lot of lessons to learn, us people from the space and the spatial planning, from those issues. And I think that I would just like to finish by highlighting the importance of point number 10, that is smarter skills. Right now, a number of recent academic papers have shown that up until 2010 and 11, the literature about smart cities was extremely poor. Only very recently, the number of papers has soared, meaning that between, let's say, the turn of the millennium and 2010 and 11, smart city issues have been about practice, about business, about investment, and absolutely not about framing an intellectual concept or something that can be researched, criticized, etc. It's more about, that is smart city, that is smart city, here my logo, here my vision, here my 3D vision. Things are a little bit more complex and obviously different than that. And even the smartest kids and the smartest professionals, we are the smartest professionals, need an education about that. I would say more precisely that looking, for example, about the situation in France, we only have 2 or 3 master degree level programs specifically dedicated to smart city understanding, connecting engineering with planning and etc. These are very rare yet, so it means that up until very recently, smart city literature was very seldom, but until now, smart city education has practically not existed. So this represents a wealth of opportunities for planners, as metropolitan planning represents a wealth of opportunities also for planners, and a wealth of challenges for planners, I would say IT specialists and citizens altogether. Thanks.